On October 27th, 1967, out at Launch Complex 34, during a pilot manned checkout of spacecraft 12 mounted atop Saturn I booster number 204, there was a fire in the cockpit. Before the hatch could be opened, Roger Chaffee, Gus Grissom, and Ed White were dead. One could look for the villain everywhere, even in the White House. There were those who whispered that the bag, if ever opened, would blast President Lyndon Johnson to the moon, and several high-ranking NASA and Space Committee members with him. But North American weathered the examinations and condemnations of the Apollo 204 Review Board, and the company kept the contract to build Apollo rockets. Yes, one could look for the villain everywhere, could chase the deaths of those three men down all the lobbying corridors of the Capitol. But no engineer could be sure it wouldn't have happened anyway, for a wrench left behind by a workman was found near some wires, whose insulation may have been bruised by the opening and closing of the hatch. It needed only one minor short circuit in that capsule full of pure oxygen. One evil spark. Well, whatever the cause of the fire, it's certain that everyone at NASA and all the corporations attached to the project has worked in a different way since. The hundreds of thousands working on Apollo rockets now had a holy task. They had the most serious and honorable work of anyone in the nation. Until now, corporate effort in America has been mainly immense and petty, or immense and noxious, or immense and depressing, stirring in the worker the loneliness of meaningless effort. Here at last was American capitalism attached to a corporate activity at once momentous, dangerous, awesome, and a palliative to dread. It isn't as if NASA has done a perfect job. There are critics enough to accuse it of timidity on the one hand and rash acceleration on the other. No one can deny that once they recovered from the 20-month paralysis following the deaths of the three astronauts, NASA accelerated its flight schedules at so inhuman a pace that one has to suspect that they thought if they did not make the moon in '69, achieve the dead and martyred president's directive to land a man and return him safely by the end of the decade, that indeed there would be no landing at all, and the end of all space effort. From October 1968 until 9 months and a few days later to this launch of July 16th, 4 flights in all have been made. Apollos 7, 8, 9, and 10. Flights on 60-day centers. Flights rotated so quickly that the lessons of the last mission could hardly be cataloged, much less absorbed and employed before the next flight was ready. Perfectionists could have spent 6 months recovering from the 50 mishaps of Apollo 7 alone. But this was October 1968. This was the year in which the war in Vietnam became a debacle. Bobby Kennedy and Martin Luther King were killed, and Lyndon Johnson abdicated. So NASA barreled ahead. Gone were the days when Gemini flights were regarded as stunts with the bad publicity. Gone were the horrors of the investigation of the fire. The sense of waiting for a blow-up had passed. Space was no longer on a corporate effort so much as a coordinated effort to produce the finest achievement in every detail. A massive holy wedding of the entrepreneur and the engineer produced a massive vehicle, tested and retested, checked and rechecked, triumphant in the 4 mighty flights of Apollos 7, 8, 9, and 10, and now ready to demonstrate before the world that man could indeed land on the moon. What a mighty congregating, what a streaming of workers and techniques toward the base of the rocket, as it had stood that last week on its launching pad. What a huge effort to lift Apollo 11 from the ground. Thank you. Thanks, everybody.